Hello everyone, and welcome to this video, which is in our Great Engine Game series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and we're carrying on having a look at the Torch against Leela 0 Chess.com CCCC 21 Rapid Challenger match. And let's have a look. We've got a great game for you here. This is Torch White against Leela Black. It's a hell of a game. Let's have a look. So e4, b6, d4, bishop b7, and Owen's defense. A3 to stop bishop b4, very sensible way of playing it, and then g6 played. So then we're going back into some sort of modern-ish sort of thingy, a sort of a Hippo really. H4, h6, just to stop, make sure you can meet h5 properly with g5. Bishop b3, bishop g7, queen d2, knight f6, f3, and now d5, and that is the end of the book. Actually, I have to say that this position reminds me an awful lot of a fantastic game that I analysed in Reengineering the Chess Classics, a new book, together with my childhood coach, Steve Giddins. It's a fantastic game, Gaprindashvili against Uchelki. And, well, yeah, very similar structure and totally crazy. So, and this one's almost as good, really. So, after d5, white plays e5, knight fd7, and well, there are a few problems for black in this position, really. I mean, you can play this, you know, to unbalance the position as a human player and get unusual chances, but in principle, it's not very good. This bishop restricted by these two pawns. This bishop restricted by black's own pawns, yeah, I mean, this king side is weak somehow, so white's always going to be able to force some sort of opening on the king side, you know, either with h5 and f4, or if you go h5, getting g4. You know, it's quite difficult. Whereas black on the queen side, not so easy to break through somehow. So yeah, you know, it's basically, you know, white's got some very nice chances here, but certainly in human games these things can prove confusing. So castle's played. You've got to be careful sometimes with castling quite soon, because, you know, these attacks can be quite quick. But yeah, black always needs some preparation somehow, so needs to play a6 before c5, otherwise knight b5 happens. So yeah, you know, black's going to take quite a while to get going, and yeah, that's going to kind of be a problem. So a6 played to stop knight b5, f4, and now h5 from black. Yeah, I would have been quite interested actually just going h5 and then f4 like this, but yeah, all the engines wanted to play f4 first, threading h5, and now h5 happens from black. So I guess that's you know, another wasted tempo in a way. You've played h6 and then h5, and then knight f3. So the knight's going to aim for this lovely g5 square, where it attacks e6 and f7. And well, the attack on f7 prevents black even from castling queenside very often. So yeah, you know, that's another little problem to have. So none of the engines were keen on playing the move c5. I mean, yeah, I think, you know, the feeling was with the engines that it was really a moment to keep the centre closed and then try and get the king somewhere, rather than start opening up the centre. That can only go horribly wrong. So knight c6 played, and now yeah, a few different possibilities here. Leela, I was playing Leela against Stockfish games for this analysis, and Leela was playing king b1, and then Stockfish was just playing the knight over to f5 like this, which is quite a decent idea. As we'll see in the game, Leela was particularly looking to play knight a5 and try and get the knight into c4, but this was Stockfish's idea. But yeah, I mean, the thing about it is very solid what Stockfish did, but yeah, it's also not that great. Black just ends up being very passive. So I'll just show you a typical game that happened here. So g4, you know, very simple, preparing that. Castles, bishop f2, and now we're you know, we're starting to look already at ideas like h5. So rook h5 played, knight e2, knight b8, trying to get this knight maybe a little bit more active. Maybe even think of playing c5 at some moment. And then bishop f5, rook g2, knight g3 and h5, bishop f8, rook hg1, and you can see that, I mean, it's not awful for black, but white's got some very nice pressure here. G6 is going to be very weak, and got a great square on g5, and just what is black doing? What is black really going to be doing with the pieces? So yeah, this was quite interesting what happened here. So queen e8, hg6, knight f1, hitting this pawn. Rook h3 was played by Stockfish here, and now Leela played quite an interesting sacrifice. Knight h4, takes, rook g6, with the idea simply that well, we've broken through, we're getting to the 8th rank, and then this pawn on f5 is going to be very weak as well. And well, knight c6, knight e3, king b8, knight f5. Stockfish didn't even bother to defend it, but yeah, of course, after this sort of position, you're getting in f5. This is really quite dangerous. I mean, Stockfish, resisted as only it can, but yeah, the writing was on the wall here, and Leela managed to win it. Which, on the hardware I'm running it at the moment, and with a slightly older version of Leela, yeah, that's a pretty impressive achievement for Leela. So yeah, this sort of possibility of playing solidly on the king side, it's not so bad. I mean, Stockfish was also drawing some games, but yeah, it's also not quite enough somehow. From a human point of view, I prefer what Leela did in the game, which was to play much more aggressively. That feels like a lot more chances. Well, Torch played bishop d3, which was also another main move of the engines, and now b5 from Leela. Knight g5, queen e7. Queen's quite well placed here, just defending the pawn on f7 and also supporting b4 and allowing castling queenside. And here quite an interesting moment. I mean, there's two possibilities. Torch just played knight e2, which I think is very Torch-like. Torch very yeah, doesn't mind yeah. Yeah, being attacked or whatever. It just plays always the most aggressive moves for itself. Stockfish was being, in my engine games, was being a little bit more delicate, sometimes playing knight a2, sometimes playing knight e2 just as Torch, but also playing the move knight a2, which prevents b4. And the idea of that is quite simple. The queen steps out of knight c4, castles, and then king b1, and then knight c1. And well, you sort of dealt with the immediate b4 there, and now you're ready to play knight b3 to c5. And let's have a look. Did I have a nice game for you here? Bishop f2, knight a4. Oh yeah, and here's Stockfish played something incredible. It might ring a bell because I showed you a game. I think it was Komodo against Eagle in a King's Indian, where Komodo did something very, very similar. And here Stockfish plays king a2, bishop b7, rook a1, king a8, rook c1, and king b1. And yeah, again, it's this idea that black's counterplay might be b4, so let's get a rook on there. And also in the future, this rook is going to be excellently placed for allowing a3 to a4. So it was very nice. And then what Stockfish did actually was just bring the king over to the other side and then start opening up the queen side. It was very, very nice indeed. It was yeah, this just basically led to a pretty clear white win here. Yeah, all of white's pieces really, really strong here, and black's king is in the wrong place, and white's king now is completely safe. So that was quite interesting. So knight a2 would have been sort of like a super safe idea, but Torch isn't really too worried about the potential counterplay. So knight e2, and here Leela played b4. Yeah, in my engine games, Leela was only playing castles actually, but we got very similar. I mean, it's transposing to the same thing that we saw already. Knight coming into b3, and we're just sort of keeping a grip of this c5 square. Stockfish was scoring hugely with this. So in a way, Leela's move b4, it doesn't really have the Stockfish seal of approval, but it's a pretty decent idea somehow, to try and get things moving on the queen side. So white plays a4, and now knight b6, b3, knight a5, and yeah, black is actually teeing up some sort of sacrifice on c4 to get things going. And well, to be honest, it doesn't look completely unfrightening to me, I have to say. But obviously, yeah, you know, the engines have got it kind of calculated and covered. Leela was playing Queen E1 a lot in this position. The idea is to allow the king to possibly escape like this. And Stockfish also played this move quite a bit. I guess, you know, that Queen E1 and the move that Torch played, which again was much more, you know, in-your-face aggressive, really. Yeah, they were probably quite similar in evaluation. For example, this was a Leela against Stockfish game. Leela was scoring quite well in these positions. Bishop d5, a5. Just in a way, I guess, forcing the exchange of bishops like that. Knight g3, and then just king d2, and you know, you escape like that. Still looked like there should be some chances here, but somehow, yeah, Stockfish never managed to create any. I think these pawns just don't get moving at all, and then White just starts exerting control. Leela was winning a lot of games with White there. Actually, I don't think Leela even drew one. Was just winning non-stop. So Bishop f8 was played by this was played by Stockfish against Leela, and oh no, by Leela against Stockfish actually. So again, my Leela doing something completely different to the much more recent chess.com one. And now Stockfish played some lovely attacks here. Takes, h5, g takes h5, f5, knight bc4, and actually Stockfish just ends up completely ignoring everything. Fe, knight e3, knight f7, knight d1, king d1, and well, I mean, yeah, you know, Stockfish has just sacrificed a rook here somehow. So I was a little bit surprised. I wasn't, you know, 100% sure, but the big problem is that this knight is stopping the king from castling, so that's not particularly pleasant. And after rook g8, knight f4, g3, bishop f5, yeah, White's threatening something like knight g6. I was just kind of amazed, really, at how calmly, you know, Stockfish did this. A whole rook down, and just playing like, oh, there's no rush, no worries, queen d2 and queen d3, we'll just defend d4. But knight g6 is being teed in now. And, well, yeah, I mean, tactics happened. Check, rook f7, and takes, queen h8, queen e5, forking these two somehow, or rather, looking at them both. Check, and queen h4, and then we pick up this rook. Gorgeous tactics as always from Stockfish. But yeah, I mean, I think you get the idea that it is rather important for black to get a move on, really, with counterplay, because yeah, these sort of attacks with multiple pawn sacrifices are really, really dangerous. So yeah, well, Torch didn't play queen e1. Torch played the move g4, already getting things moving. So knight ac4 takes, and bishop e4 blocking, and now knight d5 from Leela. So yeah, I mean, this looks, you know, just a little bit dangerous somehow. I mean, we've got c3s, we've got b3s, we've got queen d7 takes a4. You know, it's not yeah, I'm looking at this, I'm not thinking it's obvious. And actually Torch's next move shocked me a little bit, although yeah, it's probably not a bad idea, of course, just to get rid of that knight, but still. Just takes, and now again, I think very typical of Torch, just f5 here. So yes, it's you know, I think this part of Torch's play is very dragon-like. I think, you know, once launched, just keeps on going with aggressive moves, doesn't stop at all. You know, and material, you know, exchange sacrifices, that sort of thing doesn't really matter. So yeah, pretty interesting, really. It's so c3 played, queen d3, queen d7. So Leela aiming for queen a4 to a1. So Torch just in time here, just to give some space to its king, and now queen c6. And funnily enough, this is another very Torch moment, I felt, really, because certainly Leela and I think Stockfish as well, they were both looking simply to play rook g1, and after castles, then you play f takes g6. So just saving the material, really, which, you know, is pretty good. but also quite sharp. You can take and take here. Obviously, if d takes c5, then bishop e4 check wins. So knight f7 now. Then Leela was tending to go after this rook. Bishop e6, knight d8, attacking the queen. Queen f6 takes. Bishop c2 takes. Queen e4 takes. And with all these things happening, I was really, well, obviously losing track a little bit, and also thinking, oh my goodness, shouldn't black have something here? But the big problem is a move like Queen e5, for example. You can simply exchange off queens. You can always offer that, and well, yeah, I mean, these pawns are kind of blocked really, and with the exchange of queens, this h pawn is a runner, and of course the black king is not completely safe either. So I mean, for example, Queen d2, Queen e4 played. Threatening to go Queen a8 check here, so King b8 and Queen c2, and yeah, I mean you're completely good here, no worries at all. So yeah, plenty of excitement all over the place, and rook g1 was perfectly good, but Torch went for fg6, just not stopping at all. Give back that material, knight f4. Bishop h1 and gf7. So yeah, all for activity really, and yeah, exchange sacrifices, just always like Dragon, completely acceptable. Bishop d5 takes, and gh5. Another move that well, Stockfish eventually, when I started putting positions from around move 27, Stockfish started choosing g takes h5 as well, but the engines were also very happy with Queen g6. Feels just a tiny bit risky in a way, yeah? Because you're sort of moving your queen away from your king. You were threatening Queen a6 check as well at some stage, so that was always nice to have in reserve. And well, it feels quite far away somehow. You are threatening Queen e6, of course, maybe just to swap off queens. But yeah, b3 takes, Queen g2 was one game. Rook f2, Rook d4 takes, check, King e1. Queen e5, Rook e2, and you sort of think, oh, black plays c2, that's right as well, just trying to distract and queen there. But somehow, the white kings gets knocked around all over the place. But yeah, the key point, of course, is that black doesn't have a way to pick up this pawn with check, and well, c7 is also very weak after King b8, Queen f5. White's in control. I mean, you can play a move like Queen b3, but then we're heading back King e1. Check, King f2, Queen b6, King g2, in control, and this one is just running. So yeah, I mean, these sort of things, again, lots and lots of complications, lots of things that to a human eye would look completely unfathomable, but for the engines, yeah, White's got enough defensive resources here. But GH was played by Torch, keeping the queen yeah, close to the king, and I do kind of approve. The interesting thing is that yeah, I've often talked, with in the context of AlphaZero and often Leela as well, but I think all modern engines now, is that one way that that they often make progress is to shuffle pieces around good outposts, and this was quite impressive. I found, Torch played knight e4. So looking actually, all of a sudden aiming for the queen side there, looking for knight e4, Queen a6. And after bishop f8, we just go bishop g5. So we swap the bishop and the knight around on that on the g5 outpost. The knight already found one place where it sort of attacked there with knight c5. And now, after this very calm move, King e2, we've got another one, which is knight f6. So the knight coming to a different square. And what is this knight doing? Well, it's certainly not something that I could have guessed very easily. But the idea is actually just to play d5 and yeah, remove that pawn from e6, which is going to free this e pawn to go through. It also, of course, defends the pawn on h5, so keeps that that passed h pawn alive. So rook d8 played, d5, ed, knight g4. I mean, these are incredibly complicated maneuvers somehow. Yeah, I wouldn't rate my chances very highly of finding any of these. The idea is now that actually rook f6 is going to happen, and then e6. In a way, you had a good strong knight outpost on f6, and now you're going to now you're shuffling again. You're going to put a rook on there, and the key point is about it that when you play rook f6, you're actually combining with these two pieces on the a6 pawn. That's really clever somehow, you know. So again, that's another big problem for black that black has to deal with. So queen d7 was chosen, a little intermezzo, hitting queen takes g4 there. Knight e3 played, and Leela didn't want to allow in something. I think just something like rook a8. We can just go queen d5 here. It's going to be really strong, and e6, e7 following in. So play the move rook h5. This very nice move, e6, throwing in just to distract. If queen takes, we can take on d8. Queen d6, takes, and knight f5. So what is the material here? Well, materials, well, actually, black's a pawn up here in actual fact. But of course, you know, the key factor are these two very strong pawns. This rook's, well, a little bit out of play, rather loose as well. And, well, king side, the queen side rather, around black's king is rather loose. I mean, the white king is also not absolutely amazing, but strangely difficult to get at it. So c6 was played by Leela, just defending the pawn, getting ready to free the queen. Queen d4, very nice move, creeping little move there. a5, rook f4. Just, yeah, actually just keeping control very, very nicely here. All sorts of ideas, really. I mean, there's even ideas like queen g1, you know, coming queen g6. And it's really very, very hard for black to find anything really good. Queen c7 played, which I think is the most reasonable looking move, and now king d1 from Torch. And this is really lovely. I mean, actually, Torch is looking to at some stage to get the king back safe over there. You know, it's really interesting to see how you know, Torch reacting with the king. It was first of all on the queen side, then it moved over, you know, a little bit to the center, and now it's in a new situation again, changing the king's position to suit it. You know, just well, engines do this brilliantly. Humans find it harder to adjust to all the changes happening in a position. Takes. That's what Leela chose, just to try and hold the position. Rook f6, queen d6, king c1, queen g3, and did remind me actually of I once played back in 1997 in the World Team Championships. I played for the English team, and we played against Russia. And well, we were 2-1 down. I was playing Dreyev, very strong grandmaster and extremely strong team player as well. Yeah, so I was white. I needed to obviously to win to save the match for England, and I reached some sort of. I mean, Dreyev played his semi-Slav. Listen to that, Mr. Beats. He was one of the big semi-Slav experts, and caught me with a massive novelty, and I played superbly actually, and played really well. But I got some sort of position. It was with rook against bishop, and you know, with I had everything you really thought, and every time I sort of thought, right, now I've put him away, and then he kept on coming back, you know, and in the end I got him, but it was I just, you know, was amazed at how much resistance it was possible to put up in a position. It was, you know, it wasn't too dissimilar to this really, where you know, I've got lots of passed pawns, but the bishop is doing an excellent job of stopping it, and there's all sorts of you know, possibilities for counterplay for black. And this is what's happening in this Leela game actually. You know, it's just you know, I'm looking at this position for white and thinking, well, you know, there's a fair amount of danger. You think, okay, well, now I'm consolidated. And then queen d6, and you sort of say, well, I'm sort of consolidated, but how am I making progress? You know, the queen and the bishop, they're just stopping these pawns from advancing, and there's all sorts of threats, you know, coming in that could be dangerous, you know. So it's a really, yeah, despite, you know, the huge engine evaluation, of course, you know, and, well, you know that the Torch and Leela and Stockfish are just going to put this away, and probably a lot of the other engines as well. Still feels like, you know, the sort of position that I look at and think, poof, you know, I'll be relieved if when I've finally put this one away. So rook g1 played, just trying to get to the, just trying to, yeah, knock this bishop really, and bishop h6, and now rook e1. So this is quite nice, just threatening e7 now. But yeah, now the counterplay comes, d4. If you go e7, we'll go d3, which and then c2 check afterwards. So king c2 played to stop d4 to d3, and now bishop d2. Leela fighting like a lunatic here. So threatening d3 check. So Torch's reply is to go queen f3, stopping d4 to d3 and threatening f8. But Leela isn't finished. Bishop takes c1. f8 queen. Yay! So looks like end of game, you would have thought. But there's a cunning little idea here, because we can just go d3 check. And if you go queen d3, then we've got queen takes f8. So the king has to retreat, and it's got to be absolutely precise. King c1, d2 check, king d1. We block the pawn, so we force c2 check, force black to give up one of those pawns, and then d1 queen. And again, you sort of say, oh my goodness, the queen on f8 is going to be undefended after I've gone queen takes d1. But the important point, of course, is after queen f8, we go queen takes c1. And all of those complications, all of that brilliance, all of those sacrifices, this was just to give white a queen ending, a pawn up. But what a queen ending it is, because of course this e7 pawn is this e pawn is incredibly fast, and well, even if that one disappears, if it gets exchanged off, we've even got an h pawn to distract as well. So it is absolutely completely winning. Yeah, you can do all sorts of things that you want, really. Leela played queen d5, queen e3 played, gave some checks here. But it's just not really happening. Queen h4, Leela at least grabbed the h pawn, but now it's just a question of avoiding the checks. And well, for human players that can get very confusing, especially when you're short of time. But for engines, it's just a child's play. In actual fact, this king can also hide quite effectively here now. Important thing, just do notice that bit of technique, centralising the queen, always the way. So a4 played, e8 queen, queen h3, queen e3, and well, Leela soon lost that game. So there we are. Hope you enjoyed that. It's another stunning game between Torch and Leela, and I thought features some yeah, extremely interesting play from both sides. I was very intrigued to see, you know, how Torch was playing this. Really, I think you know, always choosing the most aggressive lines here, so and not necessarily the safest lines for its own king. So, you know, knight e2, allowing this move b4, and then not queen e1, but just g4, you know, calculating that the king will be able to escape just in the nick of time. And then I thought this was very interesting as well, you know, just you know, the number of choices to play, but Torch chooses the possibility that that just sacrifices material, but keeps the you know, the momentum going there. And well, I mean, quite interesting to see that. And I also thought that this one was quite interesting, you know, rather than queen g6, gh, and yeah, keeping some. Yeah, I don't know whether that's a good, you know, remark or observation, but, you know, keeping some element of danger for the opponent's king. And, you know, this is all part of it as well, because this whole maneuver that Torch did, knight f6, d5 takes with knight g4, it was about the idea of rook f6 and then queen a6 and then attacking the black king all the same, you know. So yeah, if I was to guess, I'd say that you know, king safety is something that's looked at a lot by Torch, you know. But yeah, it makes it a really fascinating game. Leela put up a great defense. Yeah, as I said, it gave me you know, flashbacks to Sadler World Team Championship 1997. Do take a look at that game, by the way, if you happen to see it. It is an absolute stunner. One of my best games ever, but yeah, you know, and but in the end, obviously, Torch too strong. But yeah, again, you know, I mean, I just love the number of phases it has. I mean, you know, who would think here that both white and black were going to queen their pawns, and that you know, we were going to end up in a queen and pawn ending in the end with equal material, but just a massive pawn on e7. Really, really fun as always. So there we are. Hope you enjoyed it. I've got still quite a few more games from the Torch Leela match. There's just too many good ones to put aside, really. So I'm going to keep on going a little bit with that. Also, obviously, keeping an eye on the Super Vinyl that's just started here. 3 reverse wins in the first 3 matches, but now Stockfish has taken a little lead. Leela fans will be crossing their fingers, hoping that that Jeroen's got some Leela-friendly surprises for them in the end. But very interesting book. I love these classic games. You know, from my channel, Reengineering the Classics as well, that I love these classic games. And well, lovely to see that it inspired that the book inspired Jeroen as well to find all sorts of interesting things for the super final match. Yeah, I mean, it's you know, it's you know, you do you can, you know, sometimes wonder, you know, what is the value of trying to, you know, manually handcraft a book like that. You know, does it really have any value? But I think it really does. You know, I think you're getting a unique series of games here, you know, based on classic games. You know, I mean, where else would you be able to let you know, would you see these engines you know, working out you know, great new ideas and plans in games played you know, sometimes 150 years ago. It's incredible, you know, and it's part of what makes chess so lovely, I think. But anyway, you know, thanks very much for watching. If you're enjoying the super final, do take a look at my new book, Reengineering the Chess Classics. You can see some of the lines that inspired Jeroen. And otherwise, you know, thanks very much for watching, and keep watching this channel for more great engine games.